day, everyone. New start to the week, new beginnings. That's what we're going to try and do on this channel today. I know it's been a very, very negative sort of weekend in terms of Man United and everything, but I'm going to try and sort of make this more positive if I can today. Try and be as positive as we can and look for a way forward for this football team. So, as always, guys, please do get involved in the comments. Let me know your thoughts. Please do like. Please do subscribe if you're new as well. And yeah, as I said, it's a new week, new beginnings. We're going to start this week with a Donny van der Beek show. As always, with the Player in Focus series, you sort of know the drill by now, guys. We look at a player, we look at their attributes. Will they play under Ten Hag? What do we need to change going forward? So that's what we're going to look at today, guys. So we're going to touch on Donny van der Beek. We're going to go through Donny van der Beek. We're not going to go through stats really because he hasn't played all that much, as you know. We'll discuss Donny, what we think about him, and then we'll sort of move on. Where should he play? And we'll move on to the rest of the squad later on. Bath time of all. Hello, I'm on a train. Big up, mate. I hope you're having a good, safe journey, and thanks a lot for tuning in while you're travelling. I really appreciate that. So yeah, as we all know, I've done a video on the Brentford game already. We discussed the issues. With our build-up play with De Gea, the lack of target man up front if we wanted to switch the play, really. If you wanted to go a bit more direct, we didn't have that. We've discussed all that. So let's get into Donny then. So obviously, Donny van der Beek, it's a real tough one. I think a lot of people have sort of fallen, I'm saying fallen out of love with Donny van der Beek, but a lot of people don't see what he offers. They think he's sort of finished and won't play. I don't quite agree with that, actually. I think there's still a lot for Donny van der Beek to do. I still think there's a lot that he can do. I still think there's a lot for him to do in terms of he does need to improve his performance levels. However, when Donny van der Beek steps onto that pitch as a substitute, for me, I think he always makes some sort of a difference. I really do. Obviously, we'll discuss things like his best position attributes in a moment. Vaughan says, to be honest, I've never seen a Premier League player. I think it's more easy to defend against than Donny. Well, let me know why you think that, mate. Let me know why you think that. I'm going to discuss Donny in terms of his attributes now. So, for me, I think Donny van der Beek is a player that's a little bit misunderstood. Right? I don't think people quite understand what he offers, right? And some people prefer more direct players. Some people prefer an explosive number 10. Some people prefer more of a tidy number 10. We all prefer different things, right? We've all got opinions on football. But I think Donny van der Beek is a little bit misunderstood in terms of what he offers. I don't think he's a world-class player. No, I don't. I also don't think he's a terrible player. I think he's a player who his best position is a number 10. He hasn't really played as a number 10 for United consistently. He's tidy in possession. I think he's quite aggressive out of possession as well, in all fairness. I think people, when they say he's not physical enough, I don't quite agree with that. His movement is brilliant. He arrives late into the box very, very well. But for me, I just don't think he's ever consistently been put in the number 10 position in the first team and been given a run. We don't see things in training, right? We don't see how he's training and things like that. So if there's a reason that he's not being picked because he's not training well, etc., fair enough. But I don't quite buy into that. I mean, if you look at Donny van der Beek, you look at how he conducts himself on the pitch, he doesn't look like someone who's not going to give his all in training and things like that. I don't quite buy that. Right? It could be true, but I don't quite buy it. Right? But for me, I think he's a little bit misunderstood as a player. I think if you put Donny van der Beek at number 10 in a team that's functioning well with other smart players around him, you'll see the impact that Donny has. Donny cannot have an impact. Donny is not an impact player. He's not an explosive direct player that's going to change a game by himself. He needs players on the same wavelength as him. So that's my personal view. But let's have a look through some of the comments. You said he runs in straight lines, leaves easily exploited holes, has a limited passing distance, no physicality. See, I don't quite agree with that, and this is what it's all about on this channel. Everyone comes with their opinion, and I respect your opinion totally. But I don't quite agree with that. I just think he needs more of a run. I'm not going to sit here and say he's been brilliant, but I just think he needs more of a run in the first team. And you'll see the best of Donny when the team's functioning better, when the midfield is more balanced. The thing is, Vaughan, I see what you're saying in terms of leave space, easily exploited holes. I see what you're saying there. But the issue is to get the best out of Donny van de Beek in terms of the spaces he wants to leave, and he wants to make third man runs, often wants to go beyond the number 9 with his runs. In order for him to do that, you need the correct midfield, you need the correct structure. And you could say that about Bruno, you can say it about Eriksen, you could actually say that, well, for any of these players, Bruno, Eriksen and Donny, who none of them are terrible players. I don't think any of them are terrible players, but what can they do? Can they produce their best output with the other midfielders behind them? So I think that's an argument I put in there, Ward. Really, I'd say, well, yes, Donny does like to leave spaces, but that's because he wants to impact the game in the final third. He wants to make those runs in behind. And the reason is, when we lose the ball then, obviously Donny's way out of position, as Bruno sometimes is when he makes those runs. And it looks bad on them because they've left a big space. But then our midfield that are there to deal with that space. You think about Fred's decision making, McTominay's decision making, their positioning, they get that all wrong and we get punished. So I do agree with what you say in terms of leaving the spaces, but I think that's something that Bruno tries to do as well. And I think that's something Bruno can do well in terms of his runs in the final, sort of beyond the striker. But I just think because of the way our midfield is, we just don't seem to be able to deal with the sort of the counter effect, which is obviously more space, and we don't have the midfielders then to break up play. We don't really have the pressing structure to win the ball back, if that makes sense. Vaughan says, do you not think that rather Adelia? I see where you're coming from in terms of the round Deuter, yeah. So it's a player that hasn't really got a set position. Round Deuter, I think it means space interpreter or something like that in German. So space interpreter, something like that. So these are players like Thomas Muller as well, that appreciate space. They don't particularly play in one position on the pitch, if you were to say, but they're not really just in the number 10. They can sort of roam to the left, to the right, and beyond the number 9. I see where you're coming from, but I think that there is still a role. Football's evolving, of course it is, but I still think if Donny van de Beek was playing in the Champions League and playing really, really well for Ajax, right, in the latter stages, and he looked completely comfortable for me. He even played it for Ajax against Chelsea as a number 6. I think that was the game that finished 4-4 or 4-3. And obviously, Ajax were more open with Donny at 6. But Donny van de Beek, when I've watched him in the Champions League, looks fully capable and comfortable. Right? And you can't tell me that playing against Real Madrid, Spurs, a good Spurs team under Pochettino, against Chelsea, I think they played Juventus as well. I just don't see how, I think there's still something in it for Donny. I really do. And if I'm proved wrong, I'm proved wrong. I think Dele Alli, it's more his personality rather than that position being left behind. I still think there's something there. I think football's always evolving. Of course it is. But we've seen, haven't we, Vaughan, if you think about the so-called old-fashioned striker. A lot of people thought that the so-called old-fashioned striker was on the way out. And then you thought about it, and then you sort of thought, oh, okay, yeah, that old-fashioned number 9, is it on the way out in terms of the game of football? We've got false 9s now, not so many target men. But then you look at the likes of Nunes, Haaland, Schumacher coming to the Premier League, and that just sort of, that's interesting. Pep and Klopp, whether you think Nunes is a number 9, he can also play maybe on an inside right forward position. But you look at Haaland and Nunes, and you think, actually, maybe there is something still in for these sort of very physical strikers. So I think, Vaughan, for me, I don't think so. I think there's still something there for him. Maisha says, thanks a lot for coming along, mate. Please, guys, if you're watching right now, please do smash a like on the video. Please do subscribe if you're new, and make sure you get involved in the comments. I know I'm uploading at all different times at the moment, but I'm just trying to get the right sort of, I'm just analysing the videos, seeing how they're all doing, and then once I've got more of an idea of exactly what people like, I'm then going to set more of a structure so you guys will know which shows are coming out on which day, because I know sometimes I do shows on different days. But at the moment, I haven't been too well with my health as well, so I've had to sort of chop and change a bit. But I think this is spot on. Donny needs intelligent players around him. He does. He does. I think you're spot on there. If systems create chances, you can't really have players just investigating space. Yeah, I see that. I see what you, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. Um, I just think, I think football is very complex, right? I know some people, football can be simple, and we can see football in a very simple way, but football is also very complex. Like, for example, let me just go and close the window, guys. Give me a minute. Sorry about that, guys. Football can be very, very simple, right? We can look at football in a very simple way. We could say it's 11 players against 11 players, blah, blah, blah. It's also very complex. You know, if you look at the way the players that we've got, and this is what I say, Vaughan, like, for me, Donny van der Beek is someone who will not flourish in a team that's underperforming. And he won't flourish if he's one of the, he can't be one of the individually fantastic players. You know, Ollie got a lot of stick for individual brilliance, Bruno and Rashford, etc. Right? He got a lot of stick. Oh, it's only Bruno and Rashford. You know, there's not a team, there's not a system. He got stick for that, right? But Bruno and Rashford, because they're so direct, they could make that individual impact. Donny can't do that because of the type of player he is. And when he comes on, because the team isn't functioning well around him, and I'm not making excuses for him, I'm just saying this is my personal opinion. I think he needs the rest of the team to be structured. So then, once everything's in place, he can then go and do his thing. Whereas I think with Bruno and Rashford, I think sometimes that they're sometimes even better off being the main direct players in a system, you know, because everything is going through them. That's how they play. They're very, very direct. You know, Bruno's always looking for that pass. Rashford's always looking for that run, always looking for the shot. And that's how they play. So I think it's just about different footballers, Vaughan. That's my personal view, but I'm not going to, you know, everyone's got their own opinion. So thanks a lot for sharing your opinion. Big up Aditya, mate. I hope you're doing well. Let me know, Aditya, what you think of Donny van der Beek. We're just having a chat about Donny van der Beek, player in focus. There isn't a lot to sort of focus on in terms of what he's done. What he's done so far. You know, he hasn't really played much, but we can only sort of hypothesize at this stage. We none of us can say for sure that Donny, you know, isn't good enough for the Premier League, and we can't say that he really is. I don't think any of, you can't really say either, because we haven't got enough evidence. We really haven't. It's like Dean Henderson as well. You know, I think Dean Henderson's a decent goalkeeper. I don't think he's world class. I don't think he's rubbish. I think he's decent, but we still haven't seen enough from him in a Manchester United shirt. So you know where I'm coming from. You know, so for me, I think we need to see more of Donny van der Beek. What I like about him is I think in possession, he's very tidy. He looks for 1-2. He's very intricate. I think we need more of that in our team. If you look at the game against Brentford, if you look at our football over the last couple of years, we've really, really struggled to keep possession well. And that's as silly as it sounds. We don't have midfield players who can pass the ball well. We all know the problems with McTominay and Fred, right? So I think against Liverpool's a bit of a different opponent, right? Because we might be playing more on the counter attack. You know, depends what Ten Hag wants to do, etc. I know that's not his principle, but we may have to be a bit more conservative against Liverpool, else we could be in big, big trouble, right? But we need a player in our midfield who, we've got Eriksen, but he's not a 6. Donny isn't either. I would personally be looking at Donny and Eriksen for this Liverpool game. I would look at 2 number 8s. I'd look at Donny and Eriksen. I think that would be the best option we've got right now. I just think we need somebody in that midfield who can just keep the ball better, a little bit more intricate with his play. And I think when he did come on against Brighton, I think he did make a difference. If you go back and watch some of the highlights from that game, he did make a difference. But please, guys, please smash a like on the video if you're watching right now. Please get involved in the comments. We're going to read out a few more comments now. That's a good point. I see where you're coming from, but also, Vaughan, you could say that for Bruno. You could say that for Rashford. You could even say it for Sancho. You know, his lack of work rate in recent games. So you could say with a lot of these players, they roam out of position, and they don't. What's the best word? They're not trying, but they don't seem to have the desire to be part of an out of possession, you know, a very, very high and compact press. And that's a massive issue. And the other thing is as well, Vaughan, with that is it's not like we've got world-class central. So you can't say, oh, okay, you know, Rashford and Sancho, I want you to go really, really high. You know, when we lose the ball,
if you want, you can, I want you to press, but actually you can still stay quite high. I don't want you to follow the opposition fullbacks, etc. But what we don't realise is we haven't got good fullbacks really ourselves, and we haven't got good midfield players in terms of McTominay and Fred. So when we do lose the ball, as you said, this rest defence structure, the structure can be as good as you want. We can set up with the best rest defence. We can have our defensive, our midfield players in the best position to win the ball back when we lose it. But if you haven't got the right players with the right attitude, with good enough positioning, decision making, then you can't really do much about it. So I see where you're coming from, but I think Bruno does that as well. I think Rashford. I don't think it's just Donny for me. DTS says Donny over Bruno any day. The evidence is there. What we've seen of Donny. Yeah, as I said, I don't think we can judge too much Donny in terms of what he's done so far in a Manchester United shirt, right? I just don't think you can. I just don't think there's enough there to sort of to judge on. I'm just judging on what he offers in terms of his overall attributes, what I've seen in an Ajax shirt, what I've seen a little bit in the United shirt, but we still haven't seen enough. He needs to play more and be just given a run of games. And if he doesn't do it after a run of games, fair enough. Just give the lad a run of games. Just give him a run of games. That would be my personal opinion. He's a player I like a lot. I think he's got some good attributes. I think he can also play as an 8. He could play in a 6 if you're chasing a game, but his best position's a 10 for me. But by my, I think his best position's a 10. I'd like to see something like Martial, Donny, Sancho. These 3 players all in the same team with Eriksen as well. I think we'd play better. I really do. So I'm hoping Erik Ten Hag. I'm hoping that Erik Ten Hag looks at the game against Brentford, looks at the game against Brighton, and I'm hoping that he makes some big decisions. I really am. I'm hoping that he'll make some big decisions because we can't go on with the same players. I know yesterday I talked about the ownership and we can't keep blaming the players, etc. But Erik Ten Hag, he can talk about signings, he can have his targets, but Erik Ten Hag can't bring players in on his own. That's up to the recruitment team, etc. Erik Ten Hag for this Liverpool game, he might get 1 or 2 signings in before the game, right? I doubt he'll get many in before that game next Monday. But all he can do is focus on what he's got in front of him, right? That's all he can do. That's all Ten Hag can do is focus. Right, I've got these players. How do I get the best out of these players for the Liverpool game? And for me, I think Donny van de Beek has got to be more of a part of his game, of his team, really. In terms of the first team. To be honest with you, I think you could take out the whole 11 from the Brentford game. You could probably take out the whole team, right? And ideally, we'd want a whole new 11 out there. But I'd certainly make quite a few changes. And for me, I think Donny should come in. Michel, thanks a lot, mate, for your comment. Agreed, Donny and Eriksen more suitable. They have patience when keeping the possession. Yeah, they do. Obviously, you need to be direct at some time. But I think, as Vaughan has said, in terms of Donny's movement, he is quite direct with his movement. When people talk about directness, it doesn't just mean a 40-yard long pass. You can also be direct with movements. You can be direct because of how quickly you can play really, really short passes with such speed and tempo. You can move up the pitch so quickly with that. You don't have to just go with that one long ball that gets cut out. So it's not all about directness in terms of, that long hero ball as such. You can play more intricately and quickly on the ground. So yeah, I agree with you there. Vaughan says, unfortunately, I think unless Ten Hag is the world's most stubborn man, we go to a double pivot. Yeah, look, I think for this Liverpool game, I think you probably will see McTominay and Fred come back in. I wouldn't do that. I'd probably start. McTominay or Fred again. I don't know who you'd start in that 6, but you'd probably start one of them, and then I'd start 2 8s. But yeah, I think you are right. I think you are right. I think McTominay and Fred may well play. But again, we've talked about this before. It just doesn't work. It just really, really doesn't work. But yeah, that Liverpool game, by the way, obviously all of us, United fans, we are worried about that game. We are worried about that game, right? We all know we're worried about that game. But for me, you never know in football is the first thing. And for me, I don't think that the result against Liverpool is the most important thing. I think it's about what's going to happen with this Glazers, the protests? Are people going to actually, leave the stadium? I've said before on this channel, I'll say it again today. I hold a season ticket. Right? I hold a season ticket, but I won't be going into the stadium for that game. And I've said that multiple times. Are there enough people willing to take action? We'll see. We'll see. I'm terrified about what Firmino would do to us with a single pivot. Yeah. Firmino is such a clever player, not a goal scorer really, obviously the false nine, almost as another, midfield player really, isn't he? So yeah, that could be interesting in terms of what Ten Hag is going to try and do to counteract that. But we'll see. We'll see what he does. We'll see what he does. I think if you look at the Liverpool team, well, obviously they're playing tonight, Liverpool against Palace, so we'll get more of an idea tonight. But if you look at the Liverpool performance against Fulham, you could certainly say there, we might not be as good as Fulham at the moment, I know that, but you could certainly say the way that Fulham played, you look at that game, you think, well, Liverpool might not be quite up to speed yet, etc. But I imagine tonight, in front of their own fans, at Anfield against Palace, you'd expect Liverpool to win. So that will probably give them a big, big boost tonight. But we'll see how they line up tonight. But yeah, guys, please do like the video if you're watching right now, guys. 6 people watching. Please do smash a like on the video. Please get in the comments. We're discussing Donny van de Beek. Donny van de Beek. What are we thinking about Donny van de Beek? For me, I think he just needs to. Just think he needs to start more. I think you'll see more of Donny van de Beek. I'm convinced, and if I'm wrong, I'll put my hands up at the end of the season. But I'm convinced you will eventually see people praising Donny van de Beek for what he does. I really am. I really do think he can offer something for us. We've got the World Cup year as well. We need depth. And I just think he needs a run. He has never, and this is the truth, Donny van de Beek's never played at number 10 in the first team. I can't even remember him playing more than one game with the best players at number 10. I can't remember it. So he's never played in his best position with the best team around him. So I still think there's something in it for Donny. I really, really do. But if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Michael used 3-5-2 against Liverpool. I don't think Ten Hag will do that. I know we've done that before at the club, and we've seen obviously Luke Shaw as a left centre back. You've got Salah, you've got Diaz. You could obviously match those two up with our wide centre backs, etc. And then you've obviously got the 2 wing backs to take care of the Liverpool fullback. So theoretically, Michel, that I see where you're coming from. You've got Salah and Diaz as the 2 forwards for Liverpool, and you've obviously got, let's say we had Shaw at left centre back, or Martinez, or whoever it was, and then whoever's at right centre back. Those players can take care of them. You've got Firmino, who isn't really a proper number 9. He's more of a false 9. So that central centre back will probably, he'll have to judge what Firmino's doing, if he wants to come out, if he wants to chase him, if he wants to follow him back, whether he wants to leave that to the midfield players. As Vaughan has said, if we go with a double pivot, Firmino likes to drop into those pockets. So that could be something to look at. And then obviously you've got the Liverpool fullbacks, Alexander-Arnold and Robertson. If you play with 2 wing backs, you've then got the extra protection there. The wing backs can deal with those players. So yeah, it's an interesting idea that I think we need to be a bit more savvy in this game. I really do. What am I saying? Right? What I'm saying is against Brentford, right? Obviously, we want to play out from the back. We know that. It's Erik Ten Hag. We want to build from the back. Keepers involved in build-up. Outnumber the numerical superiority. Outnumber the press. David De Gea needs to be a big part of it, etc. Right? But against Brentford, it clearly wasn't working. We were being put under big pressure. Brentford went man-to-man with their marking. Tony and Mbeumo against Maguire and Martinez. Hickey and Henry against Dalot and Shaw. And then Jensen came up against Eriksen, right? So if you're being pressed man-to-man like that, you always want that option. Can we play long? Remember, it doesn't always just mean a hoof to the number 9. We've seen Ederson before play goal kicks. He's got the ball in his hand and he kicks it literally into the forward path of one of the wide players as well to set them on the counter. And I think this is what we're missing with David De Gea. You know, I just don't think we've got that goalkeeper that can, if we need to beat the press by playing a longer pass, you can hit it to the number 9 if you want, more of a target man, or you can try and look for that running behind of one of the wide players. We haven't got a goalkeeper who can do that. So I think Ten Hag will have to look in this week. I think we definitely need a new goalkeeper, whether it's just a backup or a proper new one. I'm not sure whether that'll happen some sort of this season. I think it'd probably be next summer. But yeah, Michel, I think that could be something. I think that could be something interesting to use. I really, really do. Ideally, you'd want Frankie de Jong in for Liverpool, but I don't think that's going to happen. But that could be something interesting. You've got your 3 centre backs in there. You know, you might be able to. You know, obviously that's going to aid us in the build up. Ideally, you'd want Frankie de Jong as well as part of that build up, but obviously I don't think he'll be here. But yeah, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. But that could be a half an idea. I agree, Aditya. Fully agree, mate. For me, I don't see Martinez as a midfield player, and I've said this before. Sustainable, sort of, if we're talking about sustainable in the future, I don't see Martinez as is going to play in midfield. I really, really don't. I know he's got people talk about his height, but I think there's a clear agenda on Sky Sports with Martinez. Yes, Brentford targeted Martinez. If I was playing against Martinez tomorrow, my team, right, thread Manchester FC or whatever you want to say, right, make up a team. I'd say to my team, yeah, okay, play those long balls towards Martinez, see how he deals with them, right? But none of the goals that Brentford scored were directly caused by a Martinez error. Okay, Ben Mee's header, I think it was for the 3rd goal, he physically beats Martinez, not in the air, he was down here when he headed it in. So this idea that Martinez can't be a centre-back just because he's 5'9", I don't buy into that. He might struggle, it might take him time to adapt, but I think Ten Hag wouldn't have bought this signing if he wasn't sure. I think we need more of a. I think we do need a more of a physically. We're going after Rabiot, right? We need more of a physically imposing midfield player to replace McTominay. That is for certain. We do need more of a bigger profile in midfield, right? But we've got Dalot. I don't rate Dalot that high in terms of his overall game, but he's good in the air. We've got Maguire, who's good in the air as well. So I think we also need a more physically imposing goalkeeper. Then you've got a lot more protection for Martinez. So I see where you're coming from in terms of Martinez in midfield, but I think in terms of our build-up play, I still think he's very important. That left centre back, I still think he can offer a lot for us on the ball. So yeah, mate. I think for me, I don't think he's a midfield player. I think we might use 3-5-2 in our build-up. Our inability to progress the ball from deep is shocking, and a 3rd man next to the centre backs has to. Yeah, obviously that's the advantage you've got, isn't it? Really, with your when you play a 3 at the back. Obviously, you can always bring that pivot player into, if you're playing a pivot or you're playing a 4-3-3, you can always bring one of the 6s into sort of that build-up structure and alongside the centre-backs, etc. But obviously, when you play that 3 at the back, you've already naturally got 3 players there. You can also bring another midfield player in. You've obviously got the 2 wing-backs as well. So yeah, I think that could be an option. I think Ten Hag will obviously assess it. He'll look at what to do. But we certainly can't go into the Liverpool game with the same midfield, the same forward line, possibly the same back 4 as well. I just think we need something to change here. And I think the build-up against Brentford was really poor. And Liverpool will probably do the same thing to us. They'll force it long. We haven't got the goalkeeper who can accurately kick long passes. And we haven't got Ronaldo isn't fantastic in the air with his back to goal. He isn't brilliant at that anymore. So yeah. That's the problem though, Vaughan. I think McTominay is really, really poor with his back to goal, in those tight spaces. Frankie de Jong would be brilliant in there. He really, really would. I think he'd improve us massively if Frankie de Jong were to come into sort of that part of that build-up play. That is one of the biggest things he would bring, Frankie de Jong. Our build-up play, our build-up structure would be so more fluid with de Jong in there. Yeah, Brentford also knew. Yeah, obviously Brentford knew what Eriksen was like. De Gea shouldn't have played the pass, and we got punished. But Eriksen isn't a sixer. I remember saying on this show after the Brighton game, Eriksen was much better when he played deeper. But for me, as a number 8, as a number 8, that's where Eriksen is. And I don't think Eriksen's that player to receive the ball off the back, sort of the first phase of build up, to receive the ball there and then progress into the next phase. I don't think he is that player. And I've always said he operates best, in that final third. And I don't think you want him being that player to sort of transition from build-up phase to the next, sort of the first to the next phase of build-up. So yeah. Yeah, 9 out of 10, don't know what he was doing. Yeah, that's what I say, Jose. Like, Martinez on that goal, right? Firstly, we lose the first header, I think, Dallo against Tony or something like that. It wasn't directly Martinez's fault, right? I think De Gea as well could have moved quicker on his line, right? But it wasn't because of Martinez's height that we conceded that goal. I don't think. I just think he got out-muscled. I just think he got completely out-muscled. I think he could have had more protection from other players. I don't buy into Martinez being totally at fault for our defeat. I think the first goal was De Gea. The second goal was De Gea and Eriksen. You could blame De Gea more for not playing that pass. The last goal was so poor, Shaw not tracking back quickly enough. De Gea could have come out better. I don't think Martinez. I think if you play Varane instead of Martinez, I don't think that game goes all that much differently. That's my personal view. Yeah, that's a great point, Misha. I think as well, you've got Fred, who, even if he was closer to Eriksen, Fred is decent. Okay, Fred's okay as a number 8. He's not fantastic. He's okay. But Fred is really not great in the build-up phase, right? Fred is not great in the build-up phase. And I was just about to make a point. I've seen this comment as well. That's the issue. So we've only got one. Obviously, Matic has left. Pogba's left. We've only got one midfield player who's a bigger profile. That's McTominay, right? I've looked into all the stats about this. McTominay does win a lot of aerial duels, right? Very strong in aerial duels. He doesn't win many tackles. He doesn't make many pressures, actually, McTominay. I've looked into this. But he is very, very good in the air, right? So when people say McTominay gets stuck in, blah, 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 that's not actually true. McTominay isn't good at tackling. I've looked at the stats. He's in the bottom percentiles for tackling, right? But Vaughan is right. McTominay is strong in the air. So in terms of the game against Brentford, Ten Hag will look at that, and he probably learned a thing or two. You've got to remember, Pep Guardiola came to the Premier League, lost 4-0 at Everton. I remember it, right? Ten Hag will look at that and he'll think, I've probably learned a lesson there. I wasn't quite expecting that. Didn't quite expect Brentford maybe to be that physical. Didn't expect them to be that direct. And he's probably learned something from that, and that's fair enough. But I think that's why we're after Rabiot. I really do. I think McTominay, when Rabiot comes in, I think McTominay drops to the bench. You're probably looking at Rabiot, Frenkie de Jong, if he comes. If Frenkie de Jong doesn't come, you're probably looking at Rabiot, Eriksen, and Bruno. If that's probably what's going to happen. I would prefer Donny to get a run, but you're probably looking at Rabiot to come in and replace McTominay. Rabiot isn't really a number 6, by the way. He isn't really a lone 6. He can play in a pivot, but he isn't really a lone 6. So I think in terms of whether we're going to play a 4-3-3 or a 4-2-3-1, I don't think that matters too much right now because of how poorly players are playing and all the noise that's going on around the club. But I think when things do start to calm down, hopefully, and people start to get a bit more positive and we start to pick up a few more results, get a bit more confidence, players getting used to Ten Hag's principles, you may well see the 4-2-3-1 being preferred when Rabiot comes in because he isn't a lone 6. We haven't got a 6 in there. Even Frenkie de Jong, okay, he can play as a 6, but you need a player in that 3 midfield who is a little bit more physically dominant, and you also need someone in there who's a little bit more aware defensively. And I think Rabiot would give that. Although I'm not saying I really like this signing totally. I think it could be better than what we've got, but we'll see how it goes. But I think you're right, Vaughan. I think if you look at City, they've got Rodri. You look at Liverpool, they've got Fabinho. 2 totally different profiles, by the way. Rodri and Fabinho, two totally different profiles, but in terms of what they offer physically, look at it. Yeah, look at it. You look at Van Dijk, you look at Stones and Diaz, you look at I'm just trying to think of other big teams. You look at Chelsea's team, Koulibaly, Silva. Who else played at centre back yesterday for Chelsea? Yeah, they're Reece James as well. Very, very physically dominant players. Loftus-Cheek. We're a little bit light in that area, aren't we? If McTominay, although I don't rate McTominay, if McTominay doesn't play, we are a little bit weak in that midfield. And I've said this before. Fred Eriksen and Donny, or Fred Eriksen and Bruno, in terms of technically, it might be the best midfield you can come up with. But in terms of physically, against these Premier League teams, you may struggle. So I think that's why he's after Rabiot. But good point, mate. Aditya, Malacia was decent. I bench Shaw. Yeah, for me, look, I've always said with Luke Shaw, he's a player that has some good attributes. I've always said that, Luke Shaw. He's got attributes, but he doesn't. I don't think he thinks enough off the ball. I don't think he's proactive enough off the ball. I don't think he's consistent enough. So for me, I'd be very happy to see Malacia come in. The issue is, you will see teams look to sort of be even more direct against our left-hand side, because then you've got Martinez and Malacia both over there. I think Malacia is quite small as well. I don't know his exact height, but I think he's about 5'6" or 5'7" or 5, something around that height. So teams will test us even more. So that's maybe what Ten Hag's thinking is right now. The Brentford Arsenal game with the man-to-man press to get at Leno's stuff at Chance Bank video nights. That's interesting. I have to have a look at that, mate. I haven't seen. I haven't seen that. I haven't seen that video, but that's certainly something interesting, mate. So I'll have a look at that. But yes, I think it was naive. I agree. But also, I want to talk about something actually that I noticed during the game. Right, watched it again. I can't remember which goal it was for. I think it was for the first goal. It was for the first goal. I remember now. For the first goal, a ball gets put up to Ronaldo, right? Ronaldo, we all know Cristiano Ronaldo, whether you think he should leave or go, we all know Cristiano Ronaldo is, if you look at all the options we've got, he is the best sort of finisher we've got in terms of striking the ball. We know that if a chance falls to anyone, of course you want Ronaldo on the end of it, right? I'm not going to dispute that. But if you look at the first goal that Brentford score, Ronaldo looks to hold it up and loses it. This is something he does a lot. We've got a lot of players in our team, attacking players, who can't hold the ball, right? And Ronaldo's one of them. Now, Martial isn't excellent at holding the ball up, but he's better. He's better than Ronaldo at holding the ball up, right? I'm convinced, and you guys let me know if you think I'm being crazy here, but you let me know. I'm convinced if Martial played in that game, that first goal will probably not happen. The reason being, Martial probably would have controlled it, brought it down, held it up, won a free kick or passed it on to another player. Martial, I think he can use his body more. I think he can use more of his. I think he can be more explosive, Martial. I think we're still waiting to see more from him. Showed it in pre-season, but he needs to show it if he comes back in for the Liverpool game. But I think Martial controls that ball. We keep possession or we win a foul. Brentford don't go up the pitch and they don't score that goal. They don't score that goal. I'm not saying it's Ronaldo's fault, but I'm just saying these are the little tiny things in football that can change. A goal changes a game. A goal changes a game. And I'm not saying if Martial played, we would have won. I'm not saying that at all. We probably still would have got beat quite comfortably, right? But I'm just saying if you replaced a couple of those players in that team, if you would have had Dean Henderson in goal, if you would have had David Raya in goal for us, Robert Sanchez, Mike Magan, we wouldn't have lost that game. You sort of reduced the scoreline by a goal, bringing in or half a goal. You're not quite sure how it would have gone, but you can sort of hypothesize and say, well, this player, would have done better with this shot, or this player would have scored it. You know what I mean? So I think it was naive the way we played, but also we haven't got that man up front who can hold the ball up. Even if Martial plays, he's better at it, but I still don't think Martial holds the ball up brilliantly. And this is a great comment about Tammy Abraham. Yeah, he's brilliant at that. So yeah, that's just a point I wanted to bring in. I'm not saying we would have won with Martial. I'm not saying we would have won with another goalkeeper. I'm just saying that first goal completely changes things. That first goal completely changes things. You never know. With the group of players we've got, they're such confidence players. These group of players have shown in the past when they've got an arm around the shoulder, when everything's in unity, they can actually do something decent. When things start to go wrong, there's not enough characters in there to reignite the squad, to bring back the personality, the attitude, the leadership. There isn't enough in there. So that's the issue. When this team goes 1-0 down, there's nothing to bring this team back to life, to lead this team, to pick this team up from the ground, these players from the ground. We haven't got the characters. So that's what I think. I think this team based a lot on confidence. And the first goal in the game is hugely vital. Because if you think about the way we played under Ranić, there were a few games we actually played quite well. You know, I remember away at Aston Villa, we actually played really, really well. We played a 4-1-4-1 with Matic. We played Fred and Bruno. We actually played really, really well. I know we didn't win the game. We played really, really well. Home to Brentford, home to Brighton, home to Spurs. There was quite a few games last season under Ranić. We got the first goal, and we actually played pretty well. These players thrive off confidence, and that's the issue. We haven't got enough players. Look at the way that Spurs came back yesterday. They didn't deserve anything out of the game. You know, Romero should have been sent off, etc. But if you look at how Spurs, look at the attitude for it. It comes from Conte, I know, but look at some of the players they've got in there now. They've got, obviously always had Højbjerg, who's a fighter, Romero, a fighter. They've got a little bit more grit with Richarlison as well. We need some sort of these sort of players. Some of them. We need a couple in our team because we haven't got enough. When the going gets tough, the tough get going. We haven't got that. So that's something I just want to make a point of it. Oh, no, thank you. I know you're desperate, but no, thank you. You're right there. Thank you, mate, for that. For lunacy and Fred's position as well as diabolical. I saw that as well. Like, I'm picking out just one player, Ronaldo, but there was a lot wrong with that goal. It's the same as the goal last week, mate. The first goal against Brighton, I think Fred or McTominay, McTominay loses the ball. Correct me if I'm wrong, I think McTominay loses the ball. And then Dalot doesn't go to press and points to somebody else. And then the ball goes in behind. Maguire doesn't react. And then De Gea also should have come out and got that. So the issue with our fan base, though, Vaughan, is people just see a goal go in and they see who's, they look at the bit, I don't like that player, I'm going to blame him. No, there's actually many, many different players responsible. So I think you are right. I agree with that in terms of balance right now. But I just want to make a point about Ronaldo. I'm not saying that Ronaldo is Manchester United's massive problem, right? I'm not saying that. It's the same with David De Gea as well. I think David De Gea, I think it's time for Manchester United to get a new goalkeeper. I've said that for the last few months. But I'm not saying that if you take De Gea out and put Dean Henderson in, or David Raya or Mike Maignan, I'm not saying that Man United become an excellent team. I'm not saying that. You might be able to see some more of Ten Hag's principles. It's the same when I've said I'll bring Donny in. Obviously, this is all about Donny, the player in focus. If I brought Donny in for Bruno, for example, or bring Donny in for McTominay, Donny in for Eriksen, Donny in for Fred, right? I'm not saying that we're going to win titles. I'm not saying that we're necessarily going to win the game. It just might give you an extra chance to keep possession a little bit more better, to create a few more tidy chances, to be a bit more intricate, runs off the ball. We might have a few more options for the players on the ball. So I think that's the big thing, like Vaughan. I'm not saying that you put one player, you change one player. You need to change 4 or 5 of these players to see a big difference. If you change the goalkeeper, if you change 2 of the midfield players, and if you change one of the wide players or the striker, you will see a little bit of an improvement. You'll see a little bit of an improvement. You'll see a bit of a change. I agree with that. I've already read that out, of course. Yeah, Kalajdzic, I think he'd be a great signing. £20 million, 6'7", good target man, but also can link play well. He's 20. I think he's 25 as well. So if it goes wrong, you can always resell him on. I think it'd be a great signing. Aditya says, is it a Maguire contract? Yeah, I don't agree with Maguire being captain. I think we should do what Man City do with the rolling captains. I think that works quite well because we haven't got one leader in this squad that you can rely on. Vaughan says McTominay lost the ball. Yeah, that is an issue. And that's what I said in terms of Bruno. And I just think That's what I know you said earlier about Donny and his positioning and leaving spaces, but our other midfield players do it as well. And we don't have the recovery. Our players don't seem to be able to recover well. I think it's the same with the fullbacks as well, though, Vaughan. If you think about the fullbacks, Shaw, Dallo, Wan-Bissaka, I think Malacia is better, to be fair, from what I've seen of him. We'll have to see more of him, of course. But I think our fullbacks as well as our centre-backs, they don't recover well when they're out of position. Especially, Maguire, okay, he's just not very quick. But the other players who are quicker, they just don't seem to have the awareness that they need to get back into there and sort of get back into the defensive shape. It's the same with our wide players as well. So I think you're right, but I think you could say that with a lot of our players. I just don't think they've got up here. I just don't think they've quite got it. Yes, yeah. So Dallo and McTominay can't go Petrosa because one of those two not being in the block. It's just like our players. Just like I just don't see any. I just don't see it in this group of players. I just don't see it. I really don't. I just don't see an identity. I don't see determination. I don't see the decision making. I don't see intelligence. I just don't see it for the majority of the squad. Yeah, I think Martial showed in pre-season that he can be part of a press out of possession. I think he did very, very well. Ivan Smith, thanks a lot, mate, for coming along. No worries. Donny is a quality player. He's good at possession retention, fits that system. I think you're totally right. Mate. I think a lot of our players are used to the counter-attacking style. Obviously, that Ollie wanted to play. For a lot of the time, he wanted to play on the counter. I know you could talk about how it transitioned over time. We did turn to more. We did have more possession in certain phases of Ollie's tenure. That's correct. But I think a lot of Ollie's system was based on winning the ball back and quickly, can we quickly form an attack? Can we get a shot off? And I think that's why some of these players are struggling to adapt. The likes of Bruno and Rashford, McTominay, Fred, I just don't think will ever be good enough. I think Bruno and Rashford are not terrible players. I just think they're used to a different way of playing. They're different types of players, and they can't quite fit into this system. And the players just don't look like they're a unit right now. And I think that's been the case for many, many years. So I think you're right, mate. I think you're right. On the fourth goal against Brentford, Shaw is completely hung out to dry. Yeah, that's something I've been talking about for a long time, Vaughan. Like, we can say that these players have made mistakes, etc., the defensive players, but they also need more from the attacking players, the midfield players, right? So if you're a fullback, right, you might be the best fullback in the world. Right? But if you're left isolated with even a half decent couple of attacking players, you're always second favourite, 2 against 1 or 3 against 2. If the opposition have got numerical superiority against you defensively, you can be the best one-on-one defender in the world. You're still going to struggle. You know what I mean? So I think you are right. I think it's the midfield players, and I think it's also the wide players as well. I don't think Rashford shows enough. I don't think Sancho shows enough. I just don't think we've got the intelligence of our wide players as well. What do I need to do now? I lose the ball. Look at how Liverpool play. Look at the role of Salah, Diaz, Mane when he was there. City, in terms of Foden, Mahrez, Bernardo, Grealish. How do they react when they lose the ball? You go and watch that and then look at our players. It's completely different parallels. It really, really is. This point in time, I think Conte would still be an option. Yeah, I agree with that. Do you mean N'Golo Kante, or are you actually saying Antonio Conte? I don't know. I think you mean Kante. What do you think about playing Bruno on the wing? Yeah, I think that I've always said that could be half an option, but you have to be more disciplined. Wherever you play Bruno, you've got to be more disciplined. We don't have the options right now, in my opinion, in terms of the wide areas. I don't think we've got enough. I think we've got you've got Sancho and Rashford who are not on form at all. Then you've got Elanga, Garnacho, Ahmad. They're not ready. So yeah, I think that could be an option. Eriksen or Bruno as one of the wider players. But for me, I still think we need to bring 2 wide players in. I really do. And if you are playing one of Eriksen or Bruno as a wide player, you then need, obviously they're going to be playing more in the half space, so they're going to come more in field. You then need obviously the overlapping fullback. You need to hold the width. So if you do play one of those sort of what we call number 10s as a wide player, obviously they're not going to be so much a wide player. They're not going to hold the width, the touchline. They're going to be more sort of right or left attacking midfield players. So you'd obviously then need to make sure that you sort of maintain the width in your team by having a fullback that maybe goes past, or you need to keep the width somehow, if that makes sense. Vaughan says, it's very simple. You can't have more than 5 in the attacking unit because we need the other 5 in ref defence to support the counter press. Yeah. If you look at, I've done a lot of reading around the rest defence. Obviously, in terms of Ten Hag's, we've seen the 2-3-5. We saw Pep using it as well against West Ham with really, really inverted fullbacks. I think the issue that we've had for a long time, I think it's happened under the previous regime as well, is that we often play too many attacking players. You know, we play too many direct players, and then we were left exposed because the wide players weren't tracking back. So I think Ten Hag's going to have to adapt. As I said, I'm going to be very patient with Ten Hag. I think we should direct our anger towards the owners, the board, the recruitment. Why haven't the right signings been brought in for Ten Hag? You know, so I think you are right, everyone. I think the discipline of our midfield players, and I'm including Donny in this, by the way. I've said that Donny vacates a lot of space. That's just how he plays. Bruno does the same, but we've got to get more balance. And I think bringing Rabiot in for McTominay is an upgrade, but still we need more. We need Frenkie de Jong. I would love Fabian Ruiz from Napoli, but I think he's going to PSG. Yes. Okay, fair enough. Antonio Conte, fair enough. I'm a big fan of him, by the way. I'm a big fan of Conte. Obviously, if you guys watched that game yesterday, that was a cracker. That was the best part of the weekend for me. This is an interesting one. This is a good comment. Obviously, let me bring that back up. So obviously, Juan Mata played at number 10, didn't he? So Bruno played a wider role. I thought we actually played really well with Matic as well in midfield and Ronaldo at number 9. That was a really, really good performance. So I think there is something in there with Bruno or Eriksen. It's sort of more of a half space role. So you're talking sort of in between the middle of the pitch and the touchline. This is for one of them to operate in that sort of role. You look at how De Bruyne operates sort of in the right half space for City. You know, in that role there. You watch Manchester City and you look at the role that De Bruyne has. It's not just on the ball, but also off the ball. You know, so as Vaughan has said about the rest of defence, you know, how are you gonna what's your structure? How are you going to set up when you're in possession? How are the midfield players and defenders going to set up? Well, actually, a lot of the time, Man City win the ball so high, their defensive players have less work to do. If you go and look at the stats, for example, of Virgil van Dijk for Liverpool, the individual stats of Van Dijk on FBref, the defensive stats, you'll actually see that his stats don't look all that good. But the reason being is that Liverpool, obviously the gegenpress, counter-press system, they win the ball back so high with their attacking players and midfield players. So yeah, I think you are. I think you're everyone. To be fair, all the comments have been really, really good today, guys. So I really, really appreciate it. There's been some really, really good comments. That's what I like to do on this channel. You know, I know my video yesterday, if you want to go and watch that, it's a bit more sort of a plea to Manchester United fans to try and do more in terms of the Glazers and everything. But I do try and keep things analytical on this channel. I try to keep things under control, no reactionary shouting about. I try to keep it analytical, sensible, try and, you know, talk with different people, interact with all the comments, because I think that's the best way to go about it. But any final thoughts on Donny, guys? Let me know. Any final thoughts on Donny? Would you like to see him start against? Would you like to see him start against Liverpool? For me, I'd definitely bring him in. That's my personal view. Yeah, and when they look at Van Dijk as well, you know, when attacking players come up against Van Dijk, they don't really fancy it, do they? You know, so I think the way that Liverpool play, the way that City play, I think it's really, really cool. I don't like Manchester City and Liverpool. I can't stand them. Particularly, I can't stand Liverpool, obviously. But I just think you look at the way they play, the way they've recruited, the way that those clubs are structured. I think we need to try and improve our structure. It comes from the top. It comes from the top. You know, we can blame the players. We can say, I've said De Gea was at fault for this goal. We can say this and that. But at the end of the day, Manchester United have got massive issues at the top in terms of the structure of the club, the recruitment. We need a proper director of football in there. We need football people making football decisions. Leave the businessman out of it. That's what we need to start doing. We need to stop giving jobs to former players that haven't got the sort of requisite experience, the required experience at a top club. We need to have the best in class. And that's where I think it starts from, guys. So we can talk here, and as I said, I like to be analytical. I like to talk about tactics and how we can set up, etc. But for me, we can look at Donny van de Beek as a prime example of this. Donny van de Beek shouldn't be at Manchester United. Not because he's, I'm saying this from my heart, I like Donny van de Beek a lot. Not because he's rubbish, but he shouldn't be at Manchester United because Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, whether he wanted that signing or not, whether he vetoed it, whether he said he wanted it, whatever you think, he wasn't suited to Ole's system. The club have got no structure in place to support the manager. We've hired different managers with different styles of play. Donny wasn't suited to Ole's system. He shouldn't have been signed. If anyone with football knowledge was in that board, in that recruitment, they would have realised, oh, why are we wasting our money? The Glazers, the board, they've wasted money on players that don't suit managers' philosophies. So let's make sure we don't do that under Ten Hag. The three players we've signed so far are all suited to Ten Hag's system, right? Malacia, Martinez, and Eriksen, brilliant, right? We might not have signed many players. I'm not happy with the amount of players we've signed, but those three players we've signed, that's a good sign in my eyes. That's a good sign. Right? I think those three players are all good signings. I'm happy with that, right? We need to continue this, though. We need to continue this. You need to back Ten Hag. We need to make sure that the right type of players come in, because else nothing's going to change. I understand people are angry, and we're angry about the Brighton, the Brentford game. You know, the defeats of last season. We're bothered about blaming the current players. But if your focus is on the players, right, and you keep the Glazers in, keep the same structure in, you're in the long term, you're just going to see the wrong players just keep coming in and in and in. The players with commercial value, the players with a big ego for big money, not the right type of signings, right? I know we've seen the three signings that we've made so far that are good ones, but if you don't change the structure and the ownership, whoever's even working under Joel Glazer and Avram and the board, right? Whoever's working under them will still be constrained by Glazonomics. Will still be constrained by the Glazers. So, in my opinion, the biggest issue right now is not this group of players. As silly as that sounds, it's not the group of players. It's the ownership. It's the structure behind the scenes. Yes, the players are not. A lot of these players I don't like in terms of what they can offer for the team. I don't hate any of them, but I can't rave about these players. A lot of these players, right? But we've got to focus on the ownership. The big changes need to happen. Manchester City and Liverpool. I know Liverpool have got some people are not happy with their owners. I understand that. But in terms of the structure that Liverpool have, Jurgen Klopp wanted Julian Brandt. Liverpool's recruitment team said, no, you need to go with Mo Salah. And look what happened there. Manchester City have got the right structure in place behind the scenes, the right support around Pep Guardiola, as well as the investment. And it can be done. So that'll be my final message in terms of from me today. I'll check that out, mate. Thanks a lot for that. I'll check that out for sure. That'll be interesting. There is a lot of good content around, by the way, Vaughan. I think a lot of people think that it's just the big channels, and there are a lot of good not little channels, but there are. I don't know how big the United Agenda is, by the way, but there are a lot of small to medium-sized channels that also bring out good content, guys. So make sure you go and check that out on the United Agenda. I'll certainly have a look at that if I've got some spare time later today. I'm sure it's a good channel. I think I've seen him Monday before. I think he's quite good. So I'll give that a watch. Yeah, I agree, mate, and I agree, Marshall, as well. I agree. I think you're spot on. So the thing to take out of this show, guys, really is thanks a lot for watching. Please do leave a like on the video if you've enjoyed. Please smash a like, helps the channel out a lot. I appreciate you guys supporting a smaller channel like mine. Hopefully one day we will get bigger and we will sort of expand. It's a shame. It's a shame that I can't come on here today and do a post-match analysis. That's what I wanted to do with this channel, but I can't analyze dross. That's what I don't want to analyze, right? So I don't want to come on this channel and analyze this went wrong, that went wrong, this is awful, this is awful. I want to try and be more positive and analytical and look into the things and look at positive things. So when we do have a good game, which I'm sure will come, guys, and I noticed something really interesting tactically, we will have more of a breakdown on here in terms of what went right. But yeah, I appreciate all the support. Yeah, everyone, make sure you go and sub to the United Agenda. Big up Aditya, thanks a lot, mate. Thanks a lot. No, thanks a lot to you, mate. I hope you have a decent onward journey. I appreciate that, and I'll certainly check that out as well, mate. I'll probably go and do some reading in a minute about a few things anyway. Look on Twitter, have a look what's going on as well with everything Manchester United. So appreciate the support, guys. Please do subscribe if you're new. As I said, we bring lots of content out. Donny van de Beek we've done today. I know we didn't go into all that much, but there isn't all that much to talk about Donny van de Beek. We can't analyse too much so far. I might do another couple of player in focus episodes in the future. I hope you have a good day though, guys. Enjoy your day. As I said, please leave a like, please subscribe if you're new. Appreciate the support. We'll continue going and enjoy the rest of your week. Cheers, guys.